afternoon, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here with you this afternoon at Crypto Expo Dubai, a city that is fast becoming the epicenter of digital asset revolution. Today, I want to talk to you about something that is quietly but decisively shaping the future of this industry, and that is trust. Not just as a nice-to-have element, but something that is very foundational to the success, sustainable success, in fact, in the field of crypto. In decentralized finance, trust isn't just optional, it is foundational. In the last session, we were talking about the overcoming challenges in the regulatory space in the crypto industry, and we went deep into what are the challenges and how we are still in the stage of developing regulation. But here, you need to understand that we are moving into an era where you just don't need to comply with regulations. You need to move a step ahead. Use compliance to build trust and use that as a strategic advantage for your business. And those who understand this today will actually be the market leaders of tomorrow. Let's rewind a bit. Let's go to the early days of crypto. It started as a fringe experiment. It was mostly code-driven, community-led, anti-establishment to a certain extent. It was definitely decentralized by nature, but it was also very chaotic. Then came the era of scale. We had rapid user growth, institutional interest increased, and sky-high token valuations. Fast forward to today, and we've seen that the ecosystem has matured. However, it has gone through its own share of pain. Billions of dollars have been lost, and that has not been because of bad technology. It has been because of bad governance. Now we are in a stage where the regulators are catching up. Governments are no longer talking about if crypto should be regulated, but how it should be regulated. It's important to understand that going forward, the winners in the Web3 space won't be the one who are just going to move at the fastest pace, but actually those who move away from chaos and into structure. Now, ask yourself this question. Can a trustless system, which many believe the crypto is, survive without trust? Well, in 2022, $2 trillion was in market value was wiped out. Think of FTX, Luna, Celsius. These weren't failures of crypto. They were failures of trust, oversight, and transparency. What we witnessed wasn't just a tech crash. It was actually a confidence crisis. And what the market learned is that even in decentralized ecosystem, trust is not optional, but it is actually fundamental. We are still recovering from the crisis of confidence, and rebuilding trust will require more than just white papers and hype. It requires accountability. This is where compliance comes in, not as a red tape, but as the blueprint for building trust. The idea of alpha is actually changing. In the past, it was about who could move faster, hype harder, and exit early. Today, the new alpha is about credibility, transparency, accountability, security, and safeguarding of value, and building risk framework that can stand up scrutiny. The market is no longer impressed by speculation. It rewards substance, stability, and integrity. If you want long-term users, investors, and institutional partners, the game has changed. Trust is your new alpha. Let's understand why compliance isn't optional. We'll talk about a real-world example. FTX, we all know about that, was fast but reckless. It operated with no structure, no transparency, and allegedly misused consumer asset. The collapse wasn't just financial, it was existential. On the other hand, Coinbase, and I'll tell you why I chose Coinbase, built compliance into its DNA. They aligned with the SEC, maintained transparent audits, and built institutional relationship. In crypto, speed might win you attention, but it is actually structure that earns trust and sustains value. Because when the storm hits, structure and not speed is the real differentiator. And we know that Coinbase has been hit by a storm, and we need to see whether their structure and whether their compliance will be able to overcome what we have seen in the last week or so. Let's talk of some numbers here. Well, over 150 different jurisdictions now have some form of crypto regulation or are considering regulating the crypto assets. Last year alone, regulatory fines exceeded $4.2 billion, and compliance requirements have increased 68% since 2022. Now, what does this mean? It means that compliance is no longer something that you can ignore until you scale. It must be built in from day one, and especially important for those organizations that are looking to build a new organization or invest into the crypto space. Regulators are making examples out of non-compliant projects. And when that happens, it doesn't matter how many users you have. You're done. Let's understand why compliance. Remember, it's not just about avoiding fines. It's about building a business that lasts. Compliance helps you to reduce financial crime risk, ensure you're adhering to the regulatory requirement. It enhances the business integrity, protects your brand. That's the most important thing. You don't want your brand to suffer. Unlocks new market, build investor confidence, and it supports sustainable growth. In other words, compliance readiness is actually your go-to market readiness. The more prepared you are, the faster and safer, the most important word here is safer, you can grow. Now, let's look at some consequences. What happens when you are not compliant? Well, multi-billion-dollar fines can really make it difficult for you to survive and sometimes even kill projects overnight. In 2023, Binance was fined $4.3 billion by US authorities for violating the AML and sanction laws. Protocols can be debanked, cutting you off from the fiat infrastructure. Privacy protocol Tornado Cash in 2022 was sanctioned by OFAC. The developers were arrested and major front-end disabled and project delisted from centralized exchanges. Most importantly, executives and leaders of that project may face legal actions and even arrest. In 2020, BitMEX founders were charged and arrested for Bank Secrecy Act violations and accused of facilitating money laundering. But the most important part is that without compliance, your brand can suffer permanent damage. Even if it survives, the reputational loss will linger on for years. We've already talked about FTX. The hardest truth is that no amount of innovation can save you from a single regulatory misstep. Now, that is the cost of ignoring compliance. So, what does trust look like in the Web3 era? You need to have credible disclosure. You need to give transparent information about your reserve, your operation, and the risk that you are facing. Enforceable rights ensure that the users, investors, and stakeholders have protection. Risk control is extensively important. You must develop a system that is able to detect and respond to threat proactively. And most importantly, you need to develop sound governance. Who decides what and how? Now, remember, trust isn't just about avoiding scams. It's about designing your project for accountability and resilience. Let's see how the architecture of a trust-centric crypto business should look like. Remember, it isn't just a happy accident. It's something that is engineered. Very critical to have onboarding and identity. You must develop the KYC modules and real-world identity mapping, ensuring that the privacy is protected, of course, but the system should be able to have dynamic risk scoring as well as be able to conduct enhanced due diligence whenever the risk is high. Financial integrity is one of the most important aspects when we talk about the crypto industry. You must be able to build AML CFT framework that aligns with the FATF recommendations and the global standards. You must have real-time monitoring embedded into your systems, and very important to stay aware of what's going on in terms of the regulation across different jurisdictions, especially given the fact that crypto is dealing across borders. Token and contract assurance, audit smart contracts, clearly disclose token economics, and implement secure upgrade paths. Custody and transparency is very critical. It must have real-time asset visibility and segregation controls. Regular reserve disclosures are very, very important. And as we mentioned, that governance and oversight is very critical. The roles must be clearly defined. Escalation paths and working mechanism should also be very clear. You need to show that your house is in order. This is how you make trust scalable. And of course, we need to bring in technology. You need to bring in real-time risk scoring. There are advanced algorithms that can evaluate wallet instantly, look at suspicious or red flags. Automatic transaction flagging is very important, layered identity solution. Most importantly, you need compliance to be embedded into your code. It makes compliance scalable, automated, and borderless, something old finance could never do. Now, what would success look like? It's important that you have a regulatory-first design from day one. It creates sustainable foundation for growth. It allows you to access liquidity, faster approvals from the regulators, and frictionless cross-border growth with no red tape. This isn't theory. This is how it actually is supposed to work. Compliance will give you the passport to global markets. We've talked in the last session about the global regulatory trends. We talked about the MICA. We talked about Singapore's sandbags, Japan's strict protocols, SEC actions. We've seen how important compliance is. We see that the world is moving towards harmonized regulations, and the message is very, very clear. Compliance is non-negotiable. There is no negotiation on compliance. And of course, UAE is emerging as a leader in this space. We have talked about WARA regulations. We just saw a new set of regulations coming a couple of days back. And remember, that has tightened regulations more. It has really made it more stringent in terms of how to control risk and how you actually work towards financial integrity. Global collaboration and thought leadership is something which is happening in Dubai, which is not just a hub, it's a model for crypto governance. A regulatory environment that welcomes innovation without compromising on integrity. Dubai isn't just following the trends, it's actually setting the trend. Now, what does the future hold for us? Remember, the future winners will be compliant, they will be transparent, ethically aligned, and trusted by regulators, banks, and users. The next generation of crypto leaders won't just be defined by code. They'll be the ones who will embed trust, compliance, and governance into their DNA. Those who understand that in this era, compliance isn't a constraint, it's actually your competitive advantage. Trust will be the defining asset of the crypto elite going forward. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you.